The fact that the Fed is trying to deal with an inflation explosion at the same time, which might generate an economic turning, that's just bad luck and bad timing. So 5x increase in prices for capital, assuming the Fed stops right now, assuming the war stops right now. We know that there's a lot of ESG programs out there for green tech that if you raise the cost of capital by 100 or 500 basis points, they don't work anymore. Start thinking of 1,000 basis points. We're going to be there in less than 2 years. That's the capital side. There's also a labor question. The boomers are the largest generation we've ever had. Half of them will be retired by the end of this year. They are being replaced by a smaller generation. We've always known this was going to happen. We've known this was going to happen since the last of the Gen Xers were born in 1980. Are you ready? It's not going to work. This is a structural issue. This isn't people quietly quitting. This isn't COVID, although COVID did speed a few things up. This is demographic. If you want more workers who are 40, you needed to start 41 years ago. That's just how it works. I'm not going to draw a picture for you. Okay, next generation down, Gen X. This is my generation. We are part of the second smallest generation in American history. And when we look at the boomers, I mean, mostly we're just filled with disgust. But we have learned from them, even if it's just learned what not to do. When the boomers entered the market back in the 80s, there were so many of them that they pushed down the cost of labor because they outcompeted each other for wages. That forced most families to put a second worker into the workforce. 2-income families. That generated the pressure that gave the boomers the highest divorce rate in history. Gen X looks at that and is like, wow, we're not doing that. For us, our families and our time are at least as important as our money. So we are far more likely to be single-income households, and we have a much higher marriage preservation rate than the boomers as a result. There are downsides to that. When you've got 800 gajillion boomers and like 112 Xers, and the Xers are the low men on the totem pole, you get the lowest wage increases in American history. Until now. Because now all the boomers are going away. And even if all Xers wanted to work, and we do not, there would never be enough of us to fill all those shoes. So we are now seeing the highest increases in compensation in American history. And it's going to run for at least another 10 years. So for us, we are finally having our day. The rest of you know this is labor inflation, and you can suck it. Zoomers, new kids on the block, born since 2000. They are the youngest generation. They are also the smallest generation. And they are not millennials. Now, millennials have a number of characteristics that are accurate and backed up by the data. Collegiate, cooperative, work well in groups, touchy-feely management skills, their forte, absolutely, strongly supported by the data. That's not the Zoomers. See, the millennials were raised by the boomers. They were told they were special. Whatever. Zoomers were raised by Gen X. We never told them they were special. We told them they were behind, that they could never trust anyone, that Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid weren't going to be there for us, so of course they're not going to be there for you. You're on your own. You trust no one. You have to be better. Not better than the millennials. That's easy. No. Better than everyone. They're overachievers, but they're loners, and they have the highest suicide rate in American history. It's probably because we told them that when they turn 17 and a half, they have to get the hell out of our house. Their dream job is to work in a locked closet coding in the dark. They're very loyal workers, but they never want to meet you. And if you need software work, this is great. We've got a whole generation custom built for it. But if you need somebody out on a line, oh my God, no. They are the most stilted workforce we are ever going to have. And we know exactly how many we have. We know exactly what the flow into the workforce for the next 20 years is going to be. They're already here. Just like we know exactly what the outflow because of the boomer retirement is going to be. This calendar year, that's a shortage of 400,000 workers a year. That will probably peak around 2032 at somewhere between 900,000 and 1.2 million shortage. That's our labor environment. We know exactly what it's going to look like for the next decade. Final generation, the millennials. We've talked about some of the positive aspects, so it's only fair to talk about some of the negative. Lazy, entitled, show up for work at the crack of 1 p.m. Data also supports that for half of them. The other half have always done everything we've always expected of them, demanded of them. They graduated from college in 3.5 years. They didn't go to Europe to find themselves for a decade. They went straight into the workforce. And because of it, they got screwed. When the financial crisis hit in 2008, they were the last ones in the door. They were the first ones kicked out. So whether it's because the millennials did everything right or everything wrong, they missed out on 3 to 5 years of core formative work experience in their 20s, and they will never get that back. They are the least skilled worker demographic we have ever had for their age group, and they will be until the day they retire. The hope for the labor market to get back to where we were in 2019 still lies with millennials. Indirectly, it lies with their kids. A large generation generates a large generation. All we have to do for the labor market to fix itself is wait for the millennials to have their kids, for them to grow up, get trained, and then enter the workforce, which will first happen in large number in the year 2042. It's not often that you get an economist telling you exactly what's going to go down for 20 years. Run with it. Don't wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or 90 months if you need to hire. It will not get better than it is now. And as awful as that sounds, oh, it is so much better than everywhere else. Here are the big 4 economies. The blue arrows are the American millennial cadre. You'll notice that in Germany and Japan, they don't have it. It just drops off to oblivion. Both of those countries will cease to exist as meaningful economic entities in the first half of this century. We've always known that the German manufacturing model was going to collapse this decade. The energy issue is just bringing the date forward. If you need German equipment, buy it now, but don't count it on actually arriving. They probably don't have enough time left for that. Top right, there's China. Now it looks like opposite that blue arrow for the millennials, you've got that spike in the Chinese demographics, and that's 120, 130 million people. That's a lot. Or is it? Now this was already the world's fastest aging workforce